it's impossible to effectively love somebody else if you don't know who you are. And there were just so many years where I didn't know myself.
Happiness isn't something we acquire in the future. It is something we create and design in the present so that we can attract more of what is good in our lives. Outward success doesn't guarantee happiness. It's always an inside job. On the advice of his coach, Andre decided to change once and for all and commit to himself. It was time to let him respect himself. He fully understood that if he didn't go back to his roots and completely reinvent his mind, his attitude and his game, he would not succeed and rather stagnate. So that's exactly what he did. Outwent the drugs and the unhealthy eating. He put himself through strict training and built his body and stamina from the ground up. If the humiliation of having failed the ATP drug test wasn't enough, he had to start competing in the lowest rungs of the professional tennis ladder, a challenger. It was also around this time when he was ranked 141 in the world, the lowest he had ever been ranked in his adult life, that he kick-started his charitable work. For long he wanted to give back to the world, and helping neglected and abused children was his calling. His foundation set up shelters, gave out scholarships, and created a boys and girls club that had a computer lab, cafeteria, tennis courts, and library. Most of this was built initially using his own earnings, and only later did they start fundraising. Meeting Nelson Mandela also stoked his inner fire more. His rigorous training and fresh attitude finally gave a new zeal to his life. By playing multiple challenger series, Agassi worked his way up to the rankings. Agassi embraced change wholeheartedly, and finally, both he and Brooke realized that things haven't been fine for a long time between them. On paper they were partners, but in reality, they were literally and figuratively miles apart. They decided to call it quits and file for divorce. No one was as happy to hear this news than his coach Brad Gilbert, because he felt that now Agassi had no other commitment other than to his game. However, he is also the one who helps Agassi develop a friendship with Steffi Graf, the world #1 in women's tennis. Brad's encouragement was obvious. Anything that would be a good influence in his life is welcome. However, winning the battle wasn't easy. Steffi proved to be very private and shy, and she already had a boyfriend. Agassi felt that getting to know her was as difficult as winning the French Open. What he didn't know was that fate had a lot in store for him. In 1999, at the French Open, he again burst open into the history of tennis after defeating Andre Medvedev in the finals. Winning truly never felt as good as it did this time. A victory even made more fateful in the women's single title was clinched by Steffi Graf. By the time he goes on to win his 5th career Grand Slam at the 1999 US Open, he had already managed to win the heart of Steffi Graf. His regaining of the world #1 spot was the cherry on top. Andre and Steffi soon tied the knot in 2001 in the presence of only their mothers. The 2000 Australian Open is no different when he wins the finals and becomes the first man since Rod Laver to reach the final in 4 straight slams. It wasn't that he won every match he entered, but a renewed spirit and, more importantly, being kinder to oneself made the wins heavier than the losses. His happy marriage with Steffi and the birth of his first child, coupled with his own humanitarian charitable work, truly made his life wholesome. The disconnectedness and the emptiness of his former 1996 self was long gone, and in his place was a man who had chosen to take ownership of his life. After an 8-year stint of coaching Agassi, Brad Gilbert decides that someone else should train him. Scared of losing him to a disagreement from which they might never recover, they part ways on good grounds, and Darren Cahill becomes Agassi's second coach. Agassi, though, never forgets his respect and love for his ex-coach. He wins the 2002 French Open while reminiscing about his training under Brad. In 2003, Agassi is still kicking, and he becomes the oldest player in 31 years to win the Australian Open men's singles. His body may have begged him to retire, but his mind was unwilling to throw down the gauntlet. However, at the age of 36, when his body was no longer able to carry on playing such high-intensity tennis, that he finally decided to leave professional tennis in the 2006 US Open.
Over the last 21 years, I have found you, and I will take you and the memory of you with me for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Agassi may have retired from professional tennis, but that ending was just the beginning of a beautiful start to a new chapter in his life. Tennis wasn't just a career for Agassi, it formed him and his choices. It was a journey of self-discovery, and it taught him to be open to change. A great poet had once said that success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. The journey of playing tennis taught Andre Agassi exactly that.